Happy day 3. This is the final day of our training for the Makeover method going into this fall season. Okay, as a quick recap, and first of all, yes, I am wearing a red blazer, red lipstick, red nails. That is how juicy the material is that we're going to go over today. Also, if you were here at the beginning of the year with me, you know we did a lot of identity work. So a little pro tip, like you can be so many different personas. And today I knew that we were going to connect on a bold level, hence the red. All right, so getting into it, let's start with prizes. Let's start there, and then we'll kind of like recap and talk about a really good topic today. Prize wheel, dun, dun, dun. I have all of our people from yesterday with a couple more people that added on, and I subtracted the people that already got coffee. So I will be sending out those gift cards later today. Number 1 for participation, you're going to get a $10 Starbucks gift card to grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. We have Sarah Jones. Sarah Jones is the one in our comments who's talking about her travel agency. So if you have any travel needs, reach out to her. All right, number 2, she also has really adorable pups in her pictures, and we met through a friend of a friend forever ago. All right, number 2. Oh, this is so fun. Kristen Kurtz. I just met Kristen in real life at an event maybe 2 weeks ago. She's another wellness practitioner, coach extraordinaire. Very, very exciting. Okay, that's number 2. And then finally, number 3 for our prizes is... Okay, Kim Todd. Kim Todd and I go back. You know, it's funny. I can tell you exactly how far back. We go back to 2010 because I was just thinking the other day, I was having a conversation with you about how long I had been an entrepreneur. And I opened up my Pilates and Bar Wellness Studio in Charleston, South Carolina in 2010, 13 years ago. And Kim was my neighbor. We shared a wall. And it's just so special to still have you here with us. Okay, so to recap the past 2 days, because we're going to get into it. Day 1, we talked all about life assessment, getting clarity on where you are. So this is really applicable if you're like, I just kind of, for lack of better words, squandered the year away. Also, I'm wearing red because remember I said I was going to be like a little bit bolder and sassier today. Please know that everything is coming from so much love, so much from I've been there, so much from like anything that I'm saying like you potentially could be doing that might not be serving you. It's because I've done it. So maybe you've squandered the whole year away. Who knows? Or maybe you just are really lacking clarity, or maybe you thought that you went into this year with like very specific goals and vision board items and all that stuff, and then like life dramatically changed and you wanted to go a totally different direction. So that's the purpose of the assessment, the getting clarity. Day 2 was all about creating vision, because anything, whether we're doing a sprint, which is what we're talking about in this group, or you're doing like long-term kind of bigger things, none of it sticks unless you have the emotional attachment piece of it, which is where the vision comes in. Day 3, I want to combine 2 concepts today. Not combine, I want to talk about 2 concepts today, because I think that, remember, I said we work really well with like right brain, left brain, yin and yang, masculine, feminine, emotional, and cerebral. On the emotional side of things, I really want to talk about becoming. And then on the cerebral, let's go get them action side, we're going to talk about how you can walk away from this training with this magical 12-week plan that I've been kind of stringing out the past couple of days. So let's talk about your becoming first. None of these goals matter if it's not about the journey. And I can tell you this because right now our big ticket item is we're looking for a home. We have outgrown our itty bitty beach cottage with all these babies living underneath that roof. And it has been a journey that we are still on. And I can tell you, I was like brought to my knees in gratitude over how little space we had yesterday. I thought about, you know, how nice it is that I get to do the dishes and have the bathroom that close to the kitchen that I'm not like going upstairs, that I can like wash dishes and be able to hear the babies in the bathtub. So it's really about the becoming along the way of whatever it is you want. Maybe you are in crushing debt right now, but maybe you have gotten really freaking creative about other things you can do besides spending your money. All right. 3 line items. I want to stay on track here. I made some notes for us today because I'll just keep talking and talking. All right, 3 line items for our becoming. So if you're a note taker, this is like your chance to shine. Number 1 is if you want something new or different in your life. In this case, we've got some financial goals. We've got a lot of career goals on this, which I'm right there with you, so it'll be fun to work on them together. You've got to create the space. Physically, yes, quite frankly, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So examples. For my career gals, this looks like you got to clean up your desk. It sounds silly, but you've got to unclutter. Uncluttering is everything. You've got to unclutter your mind, your space. You've got to free up time. If you are trying to do something new or instill a new habit or maybe like have a new way of doing something. I was listening to something totally unrelated about mental health and your diet, and they're talking about like cleaning up your diet and getting rid of processed foods and sugars, all the kind of like obvious stuff. And it was this Harvard-backed psychiatrist, and he was like, much like an alcoholic, when you take away booze in the beginning, it sucks. It's not like there's nothing about the physicality that feels good. In the long run, you're like, oh my God, like everything is better now that I've taken out this thing that's caused a lot of mental destruction. But in the beginning, it sucks. So if you're someone who's here that like needs to cut the sugar, it might suck in the beginning. So if you have to mentally get your head around taking on something that's difficult or challenging, you want to create the most spacious environment for yourself. So it looks like cleaning up your space. And if you're someone like me who works out of different mobile offices because I've got kids and the whole thing, and I'm never really in one place, I travel a lot, then that looks like before coming on with you here live today, before sitting down with my clients on our one-on-one sessions, I clear the space. I get grounded, I bless the session, whatever it may be. It also looks like creating space where the only way that you can create something new is with creativity. Sounds kind of obvious when you say it like that, creativity. So with creativity, that needs time. It's not gonna flourish. Your brain doesn't work in that way when you're running your grocery list or you're scrolling social or you're like in your mind, you're like, okay, the kids get picked up at 2:00. That means I can get them to karate at 4:00. That means what did we get for dinner? It's like you can't do that and have creativity at the same time. So this might look like in this season of life, remember we're talking about a sprint. So let's keep that in mind over the next 12 weeks. We'll go from there. So if we're keeping that in mind, what that might look like is it might mean 1 hour that you wake up before your household. It might mean 1 hour after you put your children to bed, 1 hour less of Netflix. This is all stuff that I'm applying literally to my life in real time. So this is exact recipe I'm giving myself right now. That's how I'm creating the space. So if you're looking on becoming, number 1 line item is create the space. Number 2 is embrace decision. Embrace decision. Procrastination is one of the most common and insidious forms of self-abuse. Remember, I'm saying everything that I'm yelling at you I am literally looking at myself in the mirror. So keep that in mind. The thing with procrastination or decision fatigue, decision resistance, they say that successful people make decisions quickly and they move on. They do not waver, they don't change their mind because they treat every decision as a data point, not as the end of the world. The other side of that quote, if we're going to go based off of quotes, is that unsuccessful people, however you want to classify that, often take a long time to come to decision, and they often waver and change their mind multiple times. So the quicker you can decide and move on, then you actually get to have that data point. If it works, awesome. You get to like celebrate and have like a really cool victory. If it doesn't work, you're like, all right, that didn't work, let's pivot. That worked, that didn't work. And all of a sudden you've got these little points as opposed to like, that like sludgy place in the middle. That sludgy place in the middle is not your bold red nail polish. It's just like, ugh. Okay, that's number 2, embrace the decision on your becoming. And number 3 in your becoming is invest. Invest. The obvious thought that might have come to your mind is you might think like financially, which that's part of it, I suppose. When you think of investing in your becoming, this is like allocations, like assets, which are all, fancy like financial terms. So how can you invest in your mental health? How can you invest in how you love yourself and how you love others? That's what we're talking about with investment. Financial, sure. The funny thing on the financial side of it is doctors and lawyers totally get this. They're like, oh, okay, I want to be a doctor or lawyer. I need to go to med school. I need to go to residency. I've got to spend 10 years in like crushing student debt and all the things in order to become a doctor. But most all other professions, we get out, and especially if you want to do this kind of work, like if you are like, I am out there to grow and become a better human, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, which is a pretty tall order, that you don't just like manifest that like on a Tuesday. Like that requires investing. And so, on the non-financial side of that, what could that look like? If you find somebody who is operating or doing something a way that you want to get really good at the question, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? Like that's a question that you want to get really good and comfortable asking people. People who are more successful than you will never look down upon you. It's always the other way around, okay? So one of the little taglines that I like to say in this case is, you want to spend more money on your becoming than your Botox. Because that becoming is going to last a lot longer than the 4 months the Botox is going to wear off. It's going to, the whole thing. You can get Botox if you want. But when you're talking about your finances, that's where the money gets put first. All right, so that's our becoming. That's the piece of what are we really getting ourselves into? Now let's talk about the logistics, the action plan gals, the cerebral side of this. We've been talking about this concept of the 12-week year. Because believe it or not, annual, and this was something that was like kind of hard for me to swallow because I'm a planner and I like to reverse engineer and I like like all the things. Annual goals actually hinder high performance, which is kind of bananas. So the reason is it gives us this illusion of time. It gives us the illusion of time that we can catch up when in reality things compound. Because we all in our mind have this like, it's so funny, we all have this self-imposed, I guess societal imposed finish line of December 31st. So we all buy into it. We all buy into this annual goal situation. And the funny thing is, if we look at our little 12-week snapshot here, and we talk about the illusion of time and how we've got all year to do things and blah, 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 most companies, especially those who are in sales and product sales or any kind of sales, most companies, their performance is the highest in November and December because they have the oh shit moment of like, we've got to catch up on all the stuff we haven't done this year. The other way to look at why this 12-week model works, other than just like, we've got to put the pressure on for this amount of time and we're able to do that. The other reason this 12-week model works is if you look at athletics. If you look at athletics and sports performance and fitness and how people train, there's something called periodization. So if you've ever trained for a marathon, you like have your little training plan, and then towards the end, right before the actual run, they have you taper off. They have you like take a break. So the thought is you are working your body, breaking down the muscle, rebuilding it back up, and then ultimately for peak performance, you've got to take a break. So you can't just have this rolling 12-month rolling and rolling and rolling. Your body and your mind and your spirit work really well in these periodization timelines. And then, like I said, I think I said this yesterday, 12 weeks is long enough where you'll actually see decent results, where you can be like, sweet, I freaking crushed it. But it's also short enough that you can hold the duration. And then we talked about also how if you've got 12 weeks, you minus 1 week out of it, it's like you don't get the chance to just coast for a month like you would if you were making yearly goals. There's some sort of Roman philosopher that's like the water dripping away. What is it? Watch me like butcher it now. The fall of dropping water wears away the stone. So each little bit matters. It's not like, hey, I can do one action over the course of 12 months and like hope for the best. It's that little wearing away. It's the same thing as the compound effect, really. Okay, second concept in our 12-week plan and why it's exciting and invigorating and bold is there's some major scorekeeping that happens. And if you're someone like myself, like I imagine most of our society at this point, there was a huge movement, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, where it was like hustle culture. Like you were desirable, you were like cool, you were all the things if you were working around the clock, hustle culture. And then everybody was like, whoa, we are burnt out, screw that, myself included. And I got to a point where I'm an entrepreneur. There's a lot of other gals on here that are entrepreneurs, where that requires you to be a self-starter. I mean, you're doing all the work yourself, right? I mean, even if you're outsourcing it, your brain is the one that's propelling the idea, the vision, the product, the service forward. And I got to a point 2 years ago after major stimulant abuse where I threw the white flag. And I was like, if this is what this is, I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Hard work, screw that. I will go out there, and this is also where like different seasons come into your life for different reasons. I went out there and I was like, I want to learn about every feminine embodiment, manifestation, anything that does not require action. Because I am actioned out. I just want to sit in my feelings for 2 years. To some degree that was helpful. To the other degree, the pendulum swung a little too far to that side. And so before you get like about scorekeeping, what I have learned in my experience is that there is a difference between hard work and hustle. Hustle sucks. Hustle is the stuff that like gives us crow's feet or like wrinkles and 11s, not crow's feet, because it's the 11s. This is like what hustle gives you. Hard work is that feeling when we put our head in the pillow at night and we're like, oh, yes. Like I crushed it in my little bubble of humanity. I moved forward today. I moved my family forward. I moved my team forward. I moved something forward today. And it freaking feels so good. And you know the difference. You feel so accomplished. And the reason scorekeeping is like jazzy and fun, think about it. Like I don't watch sports really, but the reason people watch sports is because there's a score. That's why it's so compelling. And in reality, you know, measuring things, if we're going to talk about how measuring things can be sexy, it's measuring things is the little trackers and mile markers that give us self-confidence because it shows us that we are making progress and achievement. The only really two things that humanity wants is progress and achievement on some level. So the way that we do that is we have radical honesty about what exactly is going on in our worlds. Yeah, and if you think about like another tangible example, it would almost be like when people are adverse to scorekeeping, it would be like if you went up to a CEO of a company and you're like, so like, what are your numbers? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, what? I mean, we know you've got some sort of software system or Excel spreadsheet out there. Like, I don't know. I don't pay attention to it. That would be silly. Like that would be so nuts. Another example that's like why scorekeeping is the thing and why it's really helpful is it helps us know if what we're doing works. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I imagine if you're like a growth-seeking person, like you're on it. You're researching things, you're studying other people in your industry that are doing things really well, and you're like, okay, this gal, I'll take my business for example, right? Like I am creating these group programs for us. There's some coaches out there that do this one-on-one model. There's some that promote their businesses on social media and email marketing, all of this. And so there's the gal that just crushes it with email marketing. Like that's how she does her thing. Then there's the gal that is viral on social media. And then there's the gal that goes to networking events all day, every day. She talks to people in real life. She talks to friends of friends. She's like the in-person gal. All three of those methods work. But if I try the email thing and I hit my first roadblock, I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that doesn't work. Let me try the in-person thing. I go to 2 events, nobody really cares. Oh, okay, well, that doesn't work. Let me try to like be famous on TikTok. So the reason these 12-week stints are important is that we're going to try some pretty direct things for 12 weeks. Then you get to switch it up. You don't get to switch it up early because you're not going to have proper data as to whether or not the thing worked. We want to make sure it works. If it doesn't work, then we can scrap it after those 12 weeks. What else do I want to talk about in terms of this 12-week deal? The other thing about this 12-week action plan is point number, I don't know if this is 3 or 4 where I am on my list, but you are going to come up against struggle. You're going to come up against struggle, and it's going to be hard at times. And because you're trying to do something new, right? We talked about creativity and creating space. You're trying to do something new. And the thing of it is, if what typically happens when we as humans come up against resistance, one of 2 things happens. We either throw out the plan and just say like, oh, never mind, it's not important. Never mind, it's not important. I don't need to go after that goal because I'm just not going to get there anyway. I'm not going to like play full out because I'm not going to get there. So we scrap it. 12 weeks doesn't give you a lot of places to hide to scrap it. You kind of have to see it through for 12 weeks. But what I should say, another path that you could take when strife or resistance comes up. So people either scrap the original plan or they go this route. If you can take quitting off the table, if we can take quitting off the table, then we will rise to the occasion. Our brains are beautiful that way. They will figure it out. They will take action. They will figure it out. That's how like humanity progresses forward. But the kicker is you've got to take quitting off the table. And taking quitting off the table for 12 months is freaking hard. Taking quitting off the table for 12 weeks, doable. Doable. It's gonna be hard at times, but it's doable. Okay. So that's how this whole 12-week model works, why it's effective. Now, how do you actually implement it? It's the end of August. We've got a holiday weekend coming up. The beautiful thing is, if you've made it this far, if you are this far into day 3 of our training and you're catching up on the replay or you're all the things, that means that you are amongst a community of commitment-driven women, which is incredible. Like women who are committed, there's no greater force. There's no greater force. And you are a part of this community, which is really, really powerful. I'm right along with you for the ride. And, when you are in that space of commitment, the best thing that you can do, as Tony Robbins says, is make a decision to move forward. So, dun, dun, dun. Let me say this before we move forward about what's next, because it would be silly for me to be like, okay, and you're off to the races. Go figure it out. Because the thing of it is, the goals that you set out, the goals that are important to your heart, to yourself, to your family, to your community, to your finances, they are hard work. And we cannot do the work for you. Only you can do the work. However, you don't have to do that work alone. You don't have to do that work alone. And that is where these group coaching containers, there's already been 2 this year, come into play. And they're everything. I myself, in my own mastermind, I seek coaching for any and all things in life. I think that getting coached in some capacity is the least expensive, quickest way to learn. I always say that to my clients. I'm like, whether or not you hire me or somebody else, you got to hire somebody, because otherwise you're going to be spending so much time, so much money. What this looks like going forward for our Life Makeover Method fall edition of it's my spin. There's a book out there called The 12-Week Year. We're going to take my spin on it, where we take, because that was kind of like a dude-driven book. Like I'm going to give you the action items and we're going to like reverse engineer. But I'm going to give you my spin on it, on how we can actually create lasting change and reprogram some of this in our minds, in our emotionality, so that we're not just like little tracker robots. There's got to be both sides to it, right? That group is going to kick off the Tuesday after Labor Day. So in less than 2 weeks, we will come together as a small group. This isn't just like a free-for-all. It's a small group of commitment-driven women who are like, this is the time to dig into those 12 weeks. This is the exact 12-week framework. What it looks like is we meet weekly. 2 weeks out of the month, we meet on Tuesday nights. 2 weeks out of the month, we meet on Saturday mornings because we have some gals across the pond and we want to make sure that we cover all the time zones as best we can. And we come together alternating weeks of instruction and integration, like kind of more like what I'm giving you here, but we'll go into actual some instructions on what we're doing. And then the other weeks is laser group coaching. So if you're like new to the coaching world, because a lot of people are, I want to explain what that looks like. It looks like we come together in a very safe, my number one goal is that you are in a safe space that pushes you forward. That we come together on Zoom and you're going to show up with whatever you're working on and we're just going to hot seat coach it. And that's where the needle moves forward. And the cool thing about the group coaching, so when I hired my first coach, I was like, I am a hot mess. I'm grieving my dead mother. I'm trying to build a business. I'm still kind of dealing with divorce stuff. Like, I need a one-on-one coach. And she was like, well, I'd really encourage you to be in my mastermind for the year. And I was like, I don't think you heard me. I'm not trying to be part of some group chat. I need a coach. And it was the very best thing that she could have advised me on, because what tend to happen is week after week, I'd hear these gals getting coached. And some weeks I wouldn't even speak up. Some weeks I would just sit there and I would listen to them and I'd be like, oh, that's a blind spot for me too. Or I might be here for my business, but what she just brought up about parenting is something I absolutely need to implement. So there's so much power in community group coaching. I almost prefer it to one-on-one. There's a season for everything, right? But that's what we're getting into. And I wanted to, what else do you need to know about it? We do that. We meet for 12 weeks, and we're taking these actual tangible goals that you have come in here with, and we are freaking getting them done with time to spare at the end of the year so that you have time with your family, whatever you want to do for the holidays. Pricing. Let's chat pricing. We have a couple of opportunities, options. Normally, I would just do this as a group rate. That's what I've done for the past 2 sessions that we've done this year. And what that looks like is for the 12 weeks, it's $9.95. If you want to do the payment plan, we can absolutely accommodate that. It's $375 for the 3-month payment plan. What I want to offer today as our bonus, because you're here and you're investing in your time, and I think there's a lot of power in making quick decisions like we talked about, is that you will get $100 off. It will be $8.95 paid in full. And also you will get a one-on-one session with me so that we can like spend a really good amount of time just digging into whatever is the thing that you want to do. So that's how I've always organized it. That's the option. And then after like I've gotten some feedback and just kind of going forward in ways that this can be better, or not even better, but just other options for what different people need in different seasons of life. I added 2 additional packages this go round. So there's the group experience and like I said, you're going to get coaching each week. So there's nothing less than. If you are in a season of life where you're like, I need to kick this up a notch, there's the VIP experience where it's the same thing as before, except that you get 2 one-on-one sessions with me that you can use throughout the course of those 3 months. You can either do one at the beginning, one at the end, middle, it doesn't really matter. That price is $12.95. There's payment plans for all of these. You'll see them listed on the website. And then finally, there's the Luxe package. This is for someone that's like, I want to take the quantum leap. Like I want to go all in on this thing, and you'll get the group experience, the immersion training, and then you will also get weekly sessions with me. That I'm limiting to 5 because that's all I have room left for in my private practice because I have to see my other clients as well. So that will be weekly coaching, and that price point is $29.95. That once again, there's payment plans for all of this. So all of that to say, What's going to go through your brain at this point? I can tell you because I've been there. Anytime I invest in myself, these are the things that go through my brain. Money, time. Do I really believe I'm going to do this? This doesn't typically go through my mind, but I hear this a lot when I talk to clients, is checking in with a partner, spouse, your mom, whoever. And I can tell you this, the purpose of this group is to give you your life back. If you do not have time to do the group, then that's all the more priority. The purpose of being in a coaching environment is to give you more time. The thing about checking with your partner is, or your mom or your bestie or whatever, to like get validation. This is really interesting because people mask it. I'm just telling you what people come to me with. This might not be you, but people mask it with, oh, my spouse and I, we make all of our financial decisions together, which is beautiful. Like have good communication between you and your spouse. I get that. But a lot of times when we want to check with somebody else, it's because we want to share the responsibility. So that if for some reason it doesn't work out, we can say, well, you gave me the green light. You thought it was a good idea. It's not my fault I didn't follow through. So keep that in mind when you are thinking about let me check with my wife, my husband, my whoever about our finances. And then the third one, let's talk about money. First of all, I should have led with this, maybe with the pricing. I am one of the only people in this industry that does a 30-day, no questions asked, money back guarantee. If you show up to all 4 sessions, and you don't even have to explain yourself, you can come to me and say, Lauren, this is not what I was looking for. This is not what I thought I was getting. I don't want to move forward. No questions asked, money back guarantee. Nobody else in the industry does that because they're like, oh my God, it's like, I don't know what goes on in the coaching world, but I am that confident in getting you results. And I also know that anytime I've had to invest in coaching in the past, it scares the hell out of me money-wise. I have a lot of money stuff that like I had in my background that it used to scare the hell out of me. My first coach charged $10,000 and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So I get it. I'm not like delusional that everyone's just got money dripping all over the place. But I can tell you that every single dollar that I have ever invested in myself has come back tenfold, easily. Like I can say that with every cell in my body. I can tell you I've been on the scary financial side of like, how am I going to make this work? All the way to like, okay, I'm pretty cushy right now. It's not a big deal to hire a coach. So do not let money be the reason why you can or can't do this. Don't do it. You are worth it. Now is the time. Use this 12-week stint to make some money for you, for your household, for whatever needs to happen in your financial health. Because I know how stressful financial stuff is, and I get it. All right, I think that's it. I think that's all I have for you today. The other things that typically come up around, I want to do this, but I don't know how I'm feeling, is that anytime we have an objection, this is just kind of like good food for thought for you to think about. It's typically because we don't believe in 3 things. We don't believe in ourselves, that we can actually do this. And that's why I wore the red blazer and the red lips and the red nails, because I am going to lovingly push you forward, that's my part, to help you. I will believe in you until you get there. So that's my purpose. That's my role in this. So number 1 is we don't believe in ourselves. Number 2, you don't believe in me. Totally fine. No offense taken whatsoever, especially if we're like, we don't really know each other that well yet. And that's why I put that money back guarantee in place to take away all the risk from that standpoint. And then number 3 is that we don't believe in this process. And that's also why I put the money back guarantee in place, because I get it. If you're new to coaching, this is kind of weird. It's kind of weird if you're new to this world. But what I want to remind you of is that you are worth it. And the goals that you showed up to this group with, or if you're tuning into the training recorded, the goals that you have for the rest of this year, they matter. They matter. If you don't do them now, you're not going to do them later. It just is what it is. And it is your work to do, but you do not have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. In fact, not only will you have more support by not doing it alone, but you'll get there quicker with less resistance, and you will have a team of women celebrating you across that finish line. All right. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. If you are here in the group, I'm going to post the application link right away so you can get on it. That early bird rate is only good until Friday, so hop on it while you can. And I'm excited to make magic with you the rest of the year.